I acknowledge that video game movies are currently a lucrative trend, but I find it rather surprising that they chose to produce Minesweeper, the movie. The story commences with Tug, a military medic, enjoying a swim close to the Kajaki Dam in Afghanistan. Abruptly, an explosion startles him, prompting him to hastily exit the water. He then comes face to face with two local boys, one of whom is holding a rifle, but they merely taunt. Tug attempts to reason with them about the dangers of carrying firearms and shooting without discretion, but his words fall on deaf ears. His colleagues arrive shortly after and caution him against causing trouble with the locals unless he's ready to deal with the consequences. They suggest he puts on some clothes and moves on. In a gesture of goodwill, they ask the boys for some fish, and to their surprise, the boys have managed to catch some. Afterward, a British Chinook helicopter carrying soldiers flies over the Kajaki Dam in Helmand province. It touches down near other British soldiers who promptly load supplies and prepare for their mission. Among the newcomers are Prosser and Jonesy, driving a military truck to deliver a package to their base. Along the route, they spot fellow soldiers Jay, Tug, and Mark walking and offer them a ride, only to teasingly drive off before the trio can hop in. Upon arriving at their barracks, the sergeant gives them a warm welcome and lends a hand in unloading the truck with packages. Mark introduces himself to Jonesy, and they exchange brief pleasantries and handshakes. Inside the barracks, the soldiers organize their belongings before heading to their designated posts. Jay, an experienced officer, takes Jonesy on a tour, showcasing the barracks, the medics area, and the themed store. Jay also mentions that there are approximately 16 of them stationed there. Meanwhile, Tug, who serves as the group's sole medic, attends to a medical concern on Jonasy's lower body and, in return, receives 3 cans of fruit salad as a gesture of gratitude. Tug provides Jonesy with antibiotics and anti-inflammatory medication, advising him to take them regularly for the prescribed duration. As night falls, 2 soldiers carefully survey their surroundings and make the decision to stand guard. Regrettably, they observe suspicious enemy activity at a nearby petrol station and prepare themselves for a potential attack. The pair has reason to believe that these individuals might be affiliated with the Taliban terrorist group. One of the soldiers, named Jarhead, acts swiftly and wakes up their senior, Hale, alerting him to the ongoing activity at the petrol station. Without hesitating, Hale joins Jarhead and peers through binoculars, attempting to locate the suspected Taliban group. They try to communicate with their comrades via radio but receive no response. Left with limited options, Hale takes a calculated risk and fires an emergency shot to raise the alarm. Subsequently, Hale requests air support from the 3rd Battalion, but unfortunately, the missile misses the target, and the terrorists manage to escape. As morning breaks, another officer named Pearson, using his binoculars, spots Taliban members forcefully stopping a vehicle. Hale suspects that this might be an illegal checkpoint where the terrorists are extorting money from innocent civilians, possibly the same activity witnessed the previous night. In the meantime, the platoon from the 3rd Battalion engages in group exercises, preparing themselves for their upcoming expedition. Some soldiers diligently follow their routines, while others indulge in playful activities. Tug and Jay, for instance, entertain themselves by playing chess using water bottles as improvised pieces. Meanwhile, Jarhead, Hale, and Fast gear up for a mission to investigate the Taliban's roadblock, intending to disarm and dismantle it. After ensuring they have all the necessary supplies, the trio embarks on their exploration. Back at the barracks, Jay and the rest of the team take some time to relax. As they approach a specific location, the group splits up to cautiously survey their surroundings, acutely aware of potential dangers like traps. Suddenly, disaster strikes when Hale inadvertently triggers a landmine, causing a massive explosion. He is thrown backward by the blast, suffering severe injuries as part of his leg and fingers are blown away. In a state of panic, Jarhead rushes to Hale's side, trying his best to soothe his injured comrade. Recognizing the seriousness of the situation and the urgent need for medical attention, the others work quickly to control the bleeding. Realizing that Hale may die without proper medical support, Jarhead swiftly calls for an emergency response via the radio. After the explosion, Hale instructs Foz to go back and call for backup. Pearson and the platoon hear the blast but receive no response from Jarhead. Worried, Pearson and 2 others decide to check on their comrades. Meanwhile, a mile away, Mark also hears the explosion and orders the rest of the 3rd Battalion to search for their team. They quickly gather necessary tools and rush to the site of the mine strike to offer help. Despite the danger, the soldiers remain determined to patrol the steep hill. Pearson meets Foz, who informs them about the situation below and calls for backup. Pearson gathers the remaining soldiers urgently, and they head to assist Hale. In the meantime, Senior Officer John arrives in his car and stops the rushing soldiers. He offers them a ride to the mine strike location. Arriving at the steep hill, they are shocked by Hale's severe injuries. Without delay, Smudge attends to Hale's wounded leg while Pearson tries to distract him from the pain. Amidst all this, Hale suddenly asks Smudge if his wiener still works. Smudge jokes, lightening the mood, and reassures him that he can still play with his little toy. After some time, Jay arrives and informs the group about Mark and his team organizing a rescue party. He also applies another tourniquet to Hale's leg, which elicits a cry of pain from him. In the next scene, Mark and Tug show up with a stretcher to move Hale to a safer location. Tug administers more morphine to alleviate Hale's pain and instructs others to note the dosage. Mark then assigns tasks to the other soldiers to help transfer Hale to a secure area. Afterward, they all start marking points on the ground to create a safe route and prevent future explosions. As the team carefully tends to Hale's needs, adjusting his posture and offering support to move him, a soldier suddenly shouts that there is something hard in the ground, but it turns out to be just a rock, easing everyone's anxiety. Hale then asks Tug for a cigarette, and the rest of the patrol group clears the area to make a safe landing spot for the incoming rescue helicopter. Somehow, the group manages to carry Hale to the landing site they had prepared. After receiving a radio message confirming the arrival of help, Mark orders his men to leave and return to their quarters. On his way back, Pearson accidentally triggers another landmine, resulting in severe injuries to both of his legs. Despite his cries for help, the others cannot risk approaching him due to the danger of another explosion. However, Mark and two soldiers bravely decide to act quickly and reach Pearson. They apply a tourniquet to stop the bleeding and administer a dose of morphine to alleviate his pain. Moments later, help arrives, but it is not the one they were expecting. A large Chinook helicopter approaches and attempts to land a few meters away from their location. Knowing the risks involved with landing such a huge helicopter there, the soldiers signal the pilot to fly away. The dust blast caused by the helicopter makes it challenging for them to breathe and communicate with the pilot. After some effort, the pilot finally gets the message and flies away. Sadly, the helicopter's downdraft triggers another mine, injuring Mark with deep wounds on his arm, face, and chest. The soldiers cry out in agony, realizing they are in deep trouble. Prosser is among the injured, although not severely. Despite the pleas of other soldiers for him not to move, he cannot bear to see Mark's severe condition and approaches him to offer help. Mark has a serious wound under his shoulder, causing significant blood loss. Prosser improvises by using gun straps as bandages and tightly wraps them around the wound. He also administers a dose of morphine to Mark and advises him to remain calm and take deep breaths. Meanwhile, the group's only medic, Tug, is unable to bear seeing Mark suffer and decides to rush to his side. Despite the warnings from fellow soldiers, who fear he might trigger another mine and put them all at risk, Tug disregards their concerns. He grabs his bag, throws it on the ground, and jumps on it, expecting an explosion that never occurs. Carefully and regretfully, he continues making his way to Mark, realizing the sudden decision to risk his own life was rash. Meanwhile, another wounded soldier, Harvey, approaches Jarhead and urgently asks him to intubate him as his right lung feels like it's collapsing. Harvey explains that he's struggling to breathe, and this procedure is crucial to saving his life. He instructs Jarhead to insert the tube just below his second rib, enabling him to breathe properly. Despite the passing of 3 hours, the rescue helicopter still hasn't arrived. As Tug makes his way to Mark, the latter requests water, and soldiers from a safer location toss bottled water towards him. Ken manages to catch the first bottle safely, but tragically, when he reaches for another, he inadvertently steps on a mine, triggering an explosion that injures his foot severely. After some time, Tug finally reaches the injured soldiers and tends to Mark's wounds before administering morphine to Ken and applying a tourniquet to halt the bleeding from his leg. The soldiers are in urgent need of rescue, but have received no news of an incoming helicopter or team. Meanwhile, Hale blames himself for the platoon's dire situation, expressing regret for suggesting the investigation of the previous night's incident. However, his comrades reassure him that the situation is not his fault at all. Hale then asks Smudge to name his future child in case something happens to him, but Smudge refuses, offering reassurance that they will make it out of this perilous situation alive. As time ticks by, no help arrives, but the soldiers from the 3rd Battalion keep their spirits up by engaging in conversations about their lives and sharing cherished memories. Feeling thirsty and aware of his critical condition, Mark confides in Tug, sharing his final messages for his family, fiancé, and even his beloved dog. He mentions that his body is growing cold, and he feels like he can't hold on much longer. Pearson and Tug try to encourage him to hold on, but Mark continues to express his final thought. Suddenly, they hear the sound of an approaching helicopter, but the soldiers warn the pilot to stay away from the dangerous minefield. Despite the warning, the rescue team descends from the helicopter using harnesses to aid the injured and bring them to safety. They prioritize attending to the heavily wounded soldiers, starting from Pearson to Hale, and carefully move Mark's body onto a stretcher before loading them all onto the helicopter. With the medics on board, the injured soldiers receive proper treatment and a clear assessment of their condition. Despite the efforts made, tragically, Mark doesn't survive, passing away before reaching the hospital. The other injured soldiers also face a challenging battle for survival. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to support the channel.